This video is sponsored by Mark 7 Car Wash Equipment, providing clean, dry, shiny cars for over 50 years. Visit mark7.net for more information.
Hello and welcome to Unscripted, the video series that connects you with market leaders. Today on our Unscripted video, we welcome AJ Davison, IT Director at Hoffman Car Wash. Hello, AJ, and thank you for joining us here today.
Hey, Rich. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So today's topic is on protecting a car wash or detail business from cyber attacks. And AJ, I had the pleasure of sitting in on an educational session at NRCC 2018 in which you presented on this topic. You described a recent cyber attack that happened at your car wash. So for those who weren't able to be in the audience that day, can you please briefly describe what happened?
Sure. Yeah. So in 2015, we had a location under construction, and we had to allow some external access to our network. And unfortunately, we didn't close the access when we were finished. And to compound the problem, our routine security audits missed the enabled access. So in the end, an attacker was able to find that we had this access enabled. They were able to exploit it and breach our systems. Once they were in, they were able to, really quickly identify, our system as a point of sale system, and they installed some malware on the system designed to intercept credit card data. And in total, our systems were compromised for, roughly 20 days until we, were kind of alerted that there may potentially be a problem. And, we were able to find the malware. So, on our side, our situation, we were very lucky. The first thing is the credit cards that were compromised, they were used pretty quickly. Which isn't typical in these situations. Generally there's a lag between, the day that they're stolen and then, when they're first used for fraudulent charges. So since they were used so quickly, we were able to, receive a complaint from a customer within, a couple of days of them visiting our location. We investigated, and, that's when we found that, the malware was on our system. We also benefited for once, from rainy weather. I think that's probably the only time that, you'll ever hear somebody in the car wash industry say that they benefited from rainy weather. But during the 20-day stretch, we had a ton of rain, which limited the amount of traffic we had at the location. So, had we been busier, we would have had more credit cards compromised. And lastly, we don't store credit card data for our unlimited customers. So, none of that data was ever in jeopardy. So that certainly could have been, disastrous for us. So, although, we had the breach, it was a pretty impactful breach for us. We were very, very fortunate, because of the three things I just mentioned. It certainly could have been a lot worse.
Sure sounds like it could have been. This is certainly an important topic for businesses of all sizes, but small businesses in particular. I read a stat this morning: 43% of cyber attacks are aimed at small businesses, but only 14% are really prepared to defend themselves. So, AJ, in retrospect, what could have your wash done differently prior to this situation to minimize the impact? And then what operational or customer processing changes, if any, were made at Hoffman's after this incident occurred?
Yeah, looking back, we felt really good with where we were at prior to the breach. We had invested time and resources dedicated to preventing things like this, and here we were faced with the breach. And I think ultimately we really identified two areas where we should have handled things a little bit differently. There's a ton of details, so I'll try to keep them high level. But The first, to minimize the impact, we should have closed, the access when we were finished. And obviously we should have, definitely we should have caught the enabled access in our security audits. And, but we didn't do that. And lastly, we found that, our network infrastructure, it should have been designed a touch differently to add an additional layer of security. So, to address those items, we've since developed a more, robust plan for access requests and, auditing our network devices to, hopefully eliminate these types of issues. We also altered our network design. So again, talking earlier about implementing some additional layers of security there. So we altered the design just a little bit. And then I think a couple of the most important things we did is we installed a security suite to better defend against stuff like this. So we were in search of more secure remote access. The suite also included, antivirus software, which had a dashboard on it, which gave us a live view of, here are some systems that, have some scan result issues, or, dashboards that showed us where there was other software in the system that's, out of date that could, lead to vulnerabilities, or any systems that need attention in general. And the last thing, which was probably one of the most important things for us, is we implemented having a external security firm come in and check our systems yearly. And really what that provides us is it provides us a fresh perspective, allowing someone, who doesn't look at our network every single day, right? So, I have a staff that looks at our network and kind of designs our network and, works with it every single day. And this really, allowed this person with a fresh set of eyes to, kind of look at our setup and ensure we were in good shape. So, and the second area that we identified, kind of speaking to your point earlier, only 14% are prepared to respond. We weren't prepared for the fallout at all. We were in denial. We expected, or thought that, we would never be hacked, right? And as a result, we were not prepared for what we needed to do once a breach was detected or found. We didn't have a ton of detail in our response plan, and as a result, there was some initial confusion about what our first steps would be. So we did have cyber security insurance, so that was our one saving grace in all of this. They were able to quickly step in and help walk us through that process. And, from that, we ultimately, just having that experience taught us, what to ask for and, how to act should something like this happen in the future.
Sure. Now, what do you think the top 3 things that an operator or detail business owner can do today to protect his or her business and especially customers' important vital information?
Yeah, that's a really good question. At least from my perspective, number one, I think taking ownership of your own situation, right? So, what I find in this industry is I think there's far too many that assume the responsibility to protect their systems, their data, their customers' data is someone else's responsibility, right? I think too many people assume the POS vendor specifically is responsible for securing, their systems and their network. And although, the POS vendors, they certainly have their own responsibility relating to the data security and the handling of it, it's ultimately the organization's responsibility to ensure their network and, make sure their systems are secure. So, I think, put somebody in charge of your network and your systems and make sure that they understand the risks and ensure they, they're securing your systems in such a way that, protects your customers' data. Number 2, I think training is huge. I think, training yourself, your employees, your staff, just to understand what the risks are, teaching things like, to use caution when opening emails, and why it's important to use caution. Answering questions over the phone about your business, or really providing information in general that shouldn't be given to people. I think just arming yourself and your people with knowledge is extremely important and vital, in securing your data. I think lastly, one of the most important things you can do is separate your systems, right? So all of your point of sale systems should be on their own network. They should be completely separate from any other systems. And now, once they're separate, you shouldn't use the point of sale equipment, to access the internet, or really anything, including, receiving email, going to websites, opening attachments, or like I said, anything outside of, point of sale function should not be done at any point of sale device. Those items should be done on a completely separate computer on a separate network. So I think those are probably the three things, in my opinion, that an operator can do to best protect, themselves and their customers' data.
Okay, sounds good. My final question for you here, AJ, is earlier in the interview you mentioned your car wash is kind of caught off guard with this situation that occurred, and it won't happen to us mentality was there. So, certainly that's not unique to your car wash chain. A lot of operators, a lot of small businesses for that part take that approach of it'll never happen to us. So what advice can you offer to either non-tech savvy owners and operators, or the it'll never happen to us crowd that tend to minimize these cyber attack threats? What resources are available to learn more, and where can these operators and detailers get started?
Yeah, it's true. I often hear things like, hey, I'm safe, or, it'll never happen to me. Or, one of the other ones I hear quite often is, I'm too small. I'm a small business and no one knows who I am. So, I'm not the target. They're going to target somebody bigger than me. And if you're someone who is saying that, or, believes it, the reality is you're dead wrong. We're all a target, whether we like it or not. And, a majority of the attacks, the hacker just, they don't know who you are, until they've actually gained the access. Most attacks that happen every single day, they aren't sophisticated. You'll always hear on the news, about, sophisticated attacks, but most of the attacks that take place, are just attackers capitalizing on gaps in security. The one type of breach, like the one that we went through, I always compare it to a car dealership, right? So, most people I'm sure have been to a car dealership. So when you're at a car dealership, what do? Right? You walk around, you look at the car, check it out, check out the sticker, maybe, look through the window. But I think most of us will kind of check that door handle to see if it's unlocked. And if it's locked, what do? You just, move on to the next car, start the process all over again. But what if the car door is unlocked? If you're like me, you're gonna, kind of climb in the car, and you're gonna, snoop around, right? So look in the glove box, maybe check the center console. This is exactly what an attacker is going to do, right? They are sitting at their computer, they have an application. It's extremely easy to use, and really what it does is it checks for every unlocked door. In this case, the program would essentially check, all of the vehicles in the lot, and in a matter of minutes report back to you, which doors are unlocked, right? And once they're inside, they can snoop around, check to see what's on your system. They realize, this is a car wash. Hey, I can steal some credit cards. It's a point of sale system. And before you know it, your customers' cards are stolen. So if you're storing credit cards, it could certainly be a lot worse, and you really need to make sure that you're taking the steps to protect that data. So I guess I'd let them know that this really can happen to anyone. I'm just speaking of one type of attack today, right? One that we personally went through. As I mentioned earlier, we're an organization that, takes this seriously, and, we dedicated our resources to it. And, we still had a breach. And, like I said, we were in denial about the fact that it would happen because we did put the time, the energy, and the resources into it. I think having someone manage and maintain your network, checking for gaps in security, hiring an external security firm yearly to ensure, someone with, a fresh set of eyes is looking at your network, is extremely important. So as far as resources, I think that there's some good information out, all over the place. SBA.gov and PCISecurityStandards.org have some good resources. But in my opinion, the best thing to do if you're not tech savvy, to prevent really any frustration that may surface because you don't understand the information, is to leverage a security company similar to what we did, even though we are tech savvy and we understand this stuff, right? We're bringing in people from the outside to provide us with some guidance. So, those that are not tech savvy, I think, should really do the same thing. And what they can do is they can, really provide you with some clear direction on, where you should go. Just reading the resources online, I think, is a good start, but finding somebody who can come in and kind of look at your network and explain to you, here are your gaps in your security program, is the best place to start. Security it's complex. I do it every single day, and there's a lot of moving parts, and it certainly shouldn't be ignored, because there's a lack of understanding. I think that's what happens far too often. People don't understand it, so they kind of just move on from it. So, at the end of the day, the customers are entrusting you with their data, and it's your responsibility to protect it.
All great points, and I know this industry. I mentioned the NRCC show earlier in the interview. Also has various events and educational sessions that cover these topics, and certainly publications like ours also cover these topics. So operators have always been there to help each other, and certainly Hoffman's fits into that category. So we appreciate your time today, AJ, and your candid responses to help us understand what happened and how businesses can help prevent these situations from occurring. So we thank you for your time again, AJ, and have a great day.
Thanks, Rich. Thanks for having me.